Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Today we're going to do a survey or a kind of walk about the farm, and we're going to take a look at a number of the things that maybe we set in motion a while back and where things are kind of going today. So come on along. Okay, one of the things we did is when we built a number of hoop houses is we built them ourselves. This is before the days of Farmer's Friend, and we actually had to bend the metal ourselves. And so this is our first hoop house, and it's about 17 foot wide, and at peak it's about 7.5 feet tall. We are this year in this tunnel, we're just cleaning it out from the winter time, and so we're going to be planting our sweet peas in here. So we'll just take a look around and kind of explain how we're doing with getting it ready, because the sweet peas are going to need to be planted in here probably in the next, 4 weeks, by the end of February. So we're going to put in about a 60-foot row of cordon sweet peas, and that ought to give us more than enough for what we need this year. So one of the things we had to do is we had to clean out things like scented geranium, which we're still working here on this side, plus some things that we had in here from last fall. So we took all that organic material out in this particular tunnel because it was very dried out, and we put it out on our compost pile. And so what we're doing now is we've started the process on this center bed. We replaced all the drip lines, and we're treating it with our Jadam microorganism solution. And so far it's had one treatment solution so far, and I got to show you something. This is really interesting. Okay, for the nerdy, this is pretty cool. This has had one treatment of the JMS, and look at the fungal growth that's starting. I mean, this is amazing. This happened about 4 days after application. And what we've done is when we apply the JMS, we make certain that we keep the area wetted down. So I come in every day, turn the drip lines on for about, I give it a good hour so that I make sure that I keep the moisture levels high. But you can see that some of the biology in here is really starting to kick in. So we'll be doing 3 more treatments of the JMS before we plant, and that, like I said, will be near the end of February. So let's go on over to the other experiment we did. I don't know if you all remember the chop and drop that we did in our other hoop house. It's been almost a month, so let's go over and check that one out. Okay, this is the chrysanthemum side of the tunnel. As you can see, all the vegetative materials of what we're looking at is pretty much gone. And what's left are the woody stems. They kind of got a nice crackly crunch to them. You know, you can walk on them, but it really is actually pretty good shape. And it's pretty much like that down the whole path. So that's pretty good. As you can see, I got some tulips I got to harvest today. Now on the other side of the mums, we pulled the fabric cloth back on the mums. We had a few frosty nights. It's still got a ways to go, but walking over here, there was significantly more biomass on this side, and it's also too beginning to disappear. And so I think this experiment's going to work out pretty good. We will wet it down again maybe one more time, but there's actually enough moisture in here, and the ground itself is pretty you know, a little crunchy, but it's okay. So it's kind of soft to walk under, and I think it really worked out really well. So I think this was a success. So now let's go up and take a look at the daffodil beds.
Okay, here we are looking at the front daffodil beds. These boxes were, over in the summer, were planted with zinnias as well as marigolds. What you're looking at here is after the zinnias were finished, we cut them off at the ground, leaving the roots to rot in the ground. And then we covered each of the boxes with about a ½ inch of urban waste compost. This is Groundhog's Day, 2nd of February, and the daffodils, the early ones, are coming up and growing quite strongly. And several of the other boxes have mixes of early, mid, and late, and so they're at various stages of growing. Here's an example of a mixed box. So when you look at these, it really was quite successful. When the daffodils were finished last spring and they began to die down, we covered them with a cut grass mulch, and then several weeks after that we planted into them with the summer annuals. Here's an example of hyacinths that underwent the same treatment. So overplanting them with these types of annuals really didn't cause any damage to the bulbs at all. Here's an example of the front area, which was overplanted with ornamental squashes, pumpkins, as well as winter squash. This bed here is a mix of different types of daffodils, so they're coming up at different rates. The bed over here, I believe, is called Flower Drift, and it's a little bit later. And then behind it is Replete, which is well on its way to getting up and getting ready to bloom. You can still see in the pathways the rotted out remains of the squash, which performed an excellent mulch. Some early crocuses.
So this is just to give you an idea of the crate house itself. This is another thing that's starting to come into production. So these are our anemones, and they're not looking too bad. We've gotten some pretty good stem length already. I think the heads will only get bigger as time goes on. So this one's looking pretty good. Let's go check out the biochar. That's interesting. All right, a couple of weeks ago we did a biochar burn, and what we're doing now is we're in the process of inoculating it. We're going to be using this biochar when we plant our sweet peas at the end of February here. So this is going to be basically, we've been inoculating it with compost soil. We mixed in some flour as a feed source, and this has been sitting now for about 5 days, and what we're starting to see now is fungal growth. So we keep the biochar wrapped in polyweave landscape fabric inside of a crate. It's not very deep, it's only about 9 inches deep, and the mixture now is starting to get a fungal, I think if you look at it closely, you can start to see some of the fungal hyphae is starting to grow, and in a few days this probably thing will just be blooming white with fungal growth. There's some right there. It's perfect, good looking stuff. So this is just beginning to rock and roll, and that is an excellent sign. That means the biochar is being colonized by all kinds of microbiotic life, and we're going to let this guy go. We just keep it covered and make sure it stays damp, and then in a few weeks, by the end of the month, it'll be ready to go. So I thought the last thing I'd show you guys was be just a quick look at the winter snapdragons and the ranunculus that are coming along for spring coming up. And this is a tunnel where we've done 100% of the Jadam method on it so far using JMS and the JLF liquid fertilizer. And so far things are looking really pretty good. Although this is the 1st of February, I guess not actually 2nd, it's Groundhog Day today. And so things still have quite a bit more growth to go before they begin to bloom. But thought you'd like to take a quick peek at how things are progressing along. Okay, these are the snapdragons, and as you can see, the leaves are looking really pretty good. Usually we have a mineral deficiency by this point, and it's just, these guys are just really bopping along. Now, we didn't pinch them this year, so that's probably maybe explaining why they're so much bigger. We've got different varieties here. Some of them, this variety in the front, I think is in the Cool series. And so these guys are really rocking and rolling. And then we have some back behind it that are things like Trumpet and Chantilly's. And so they're doing pretty good too, but they don't look quite as big as the Cool series. But this is going to be a really good, I think, harvest coming up. These guys will probably be blooming early May. That's kind of been typical for us. On this side over here, we've got our ranunculus. And we planted them a lot sparser than we normally do. So this has kind of been interesting. What we've been noticing, particularly on these amidines, these are amidine pastel mix, is that the crowns themselves are actually looking really pretty good. And I think even though it doesn't look as full as it has in prior years, I think the plants are actually much more healthy. We've had fewer yellowing leaves. We've had very low slug problems, which means the airflow is really pretty good. And I think, as we go forward here, we're going to start seeing some blooms on these guys probably by mid-March. So right here we have our overwintered delphinium, and they're just coming out of dormancy. So you can see some nice little green tops getting started. This is all Guardian series, and so they're mostly lavenders, whites, and some blues. And I think the blue is actually a different variety, but it's mostly, this is the third year on these guys, so they're actually doing really well. So in this area, what we've got is these are the Iron Series stock, and they're just starting to really kind of put on some growth. The leaves are going to start getting bigger here, and we're going to start seeing some stretching to hopefully start making some flowers. Probably for us, these guys are going to be blooming. Typical for us has been late April. And so this is a kind of a mix of apricots and pinks and cherries and things of that nature. So they're doing really pretty well too. Well, okay, thanks folks for coming along today. This is just kind of a quick walkthrough just to see where things are on today being Groundhog Day, kind of like right in the middle of winter. And so, well, I think things are doing pretty good. And some of the experiments are coming along, I think are proving themselves out to be a good choice to do. The daffodil one looks really good, and I think the chop and drop worked well too. We're kind of excited, or I am anyway, because I'm geeky about this, about the biochar. I think that's going to be a really cool addition to the sweet pea bed, and see how getting that extra biology into the soil in that inoculated biochar even helps the sweet peas more. So we'll do a video on that when we get ready to plant, but I think it's going to be pretty cool. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming along today. And as always, stay safe out there and have a good day. Bye-bye.